Listen up, Denver Broncos family. What happened in Week 7 against the Giants was surreal. We started getting blown out. It looked like the game was already lost. Bo Nix completing just one pass in his first 5 attempts, us getting shut out until the third quarter. And then, out of nowhere, the most improbable comeback of the season happens. How simple. We stopped trying to force lateral passes that weren't working and went back to football basics, running the ball, imposing our physicality, dominating the line of scrimmage, and doing what the Broncos do best when they play with identity. But wait, because there's a detail in this comeback that completely changed the direction of our season. And if you haven't figured out what it is yet, stick with me until the end of this video, and you'll understand why this game might have been the turning point we've been waiting for. Let's start from the beginning. Broncos Country. The 2024 season started with massive frustration in the ground game. We couldn't establish a consistent running game. The running backs weren't producing, and Sean Payton's offense simply wasn't working like it should. For those who know Payton's work, he's a guy who loves a balanced attack that can mix short passes with powerful runs, but we didn't have that. It was just pass, 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 and when we tried to run, nothing came of it. Result? We became too dependent on our rookie quarterback's arm, and that's never a recipe for success, especially when you have a guy who's still learning to play in the league. Then the Broncos front office made a bold decision. They looked at that group of running backs, shook their heads, and said, "This isn't working. Let's make changes." And they made big changes, people. Of all the main runners from last season, only one remained on the roster, Jaleel McLaughlin. Everyone else was let go, and the organization brought in fresh blood. J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and Tyler Beatty arrived. 3 guys with different styles, but all with one thing in common: the will to prove they could carry this offense on their backs. And look, against the Giants, we finally saw this trio working the way it should. Dobbins, who arrived with a huge question mark about his ability to return to a high level after serious injuries, brought it. He racked up 81 yards in that game, and look where he is now in the league, 7th place in total rushing yards. 7th, family. When was the last time a Broncos rusher was in the top 10 in the NFL in rushing? It's been a while, right? Well, Dobbins is making us dream again about that physical football, about imposing respect at the line, about making the opposing defense feel pain on every carry. In total, we rushed for an impressive 142 yards on just 24 carries. Do the math with me. That's an average of almost 6 yards per attempt. 6 yards, people. That's elite production. That's the kind of efficiency that wins championships. When you can produce 6 yards per rush, you're controlling the clock, you're keeping your defense rested, you're wearing down the opposing defense. You're doing everything a winning team needs to do, and there's more. Bo Nix also joined the rushing party. Our young quarterback showed he's not just an arm. No, sir. He's got legs too and knows how to use them when needed. Nix ran 5 times for 48 yards and scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. 2 rushing touchdowns, family. Those 2 touchdowns were exactly what turned the game around, what made us go from a desperate situation to attacking the Giants with everything. Without those Nix runs, without his courage to hold the ball and gain yards with his own legs, we wouldn't have completed that historic comeback. But here comes the problem, and it's a serious problem we need to discuss. Despite all this efficiency running the ball, the Broncos still seem to be having an offensive identity crisis. Look how the game started. Bo Nix completed just one of his first 5 passes. 1 in 5, people. At a certain point in the third quarter, he was completing less than 50% of his throws, and we were getting shut out at home. Against a team that isn't exactly terrorizing the league. Why did this happen? Because for some inexplicable reason, we insist on starting games trying to establish an air game with short east-west passes. Those lateral passes that don't gain yards, that don't stretch the field, that don't put pressure on the opposing defense. We keep trying to force this strategy that clearly isn't working, dig a huge hole in the score, and only then, when we're already desperate, do we decide to do what we should have done from the start? Run the ball. And so, I ask you, Broncos Country, why don't we do this from the first snap? Why don't we start the game imposing our physical game, establishing the run, forcing the opposing defense to bring more guys into the box, and opening up space for passes? This is basic football. It's what every coach teaches. It's what has worked for decades in this league. When you have a running game working like ours was working, you use it, you abuse it. You make the opposing defense suffer until they can't take it anymore. Look at what happened in the fourth quarter against the Giants. When we finally decided to believe in our ground game, when Dobbins started getting the ball frequently, when Bo Nix started using his legs, everything changed. The offense gained rhythm, gained confidence, started moving the ball with authority. There was one specific Dobbins run that saved that comeback. It was a 33-yard run on our second touchdown drive of the fourth quarter. That run saved precious time on the clock and ate up a good chunk of the yards we needed to reach the end zone. It was a crucial play, one of those that defines games, and it happened because we trusted our ground game. Here's an inconvenient truth about football. Comebacks built on the running game are extremely rare. When a team is losing, they normally have to resort to passing because they need to recover points quickly and the clock is against them. But you know what's better than making a comeback by running the ball late in the game? Not needing a comeback at all. And how do you avoid needing comebacks? Simple. You establish your strong running game from the start. You don't wait until you're losing to do what works. You do what works from the first snap and build a comfortable lead. And look at the luck we have, family. We don't have just one or two guys who can run the ball. We have 5 legitimate rushing options. We have the 3 running backs, Dobbins, Harvey, and Beatty. We have Bo Nix himself, who has already proven he can gain important yards when he leaves the pocket. And we even have Marvin Mims Jr., who in the game against the Giants registered a 13-yard run and showed he can be used creatively in the offense. 5 guys who can take the ball and run. 5 different threats that opposing defenses need to worry about. That's a luxury few teams in the league have. Now we're sitting at 5 wins and 2 losses, comfortably at the top of the AFC West Division, firmly in the playoff hunt. Look where we are, Broncos Country! After years of suffering, lost seasons, wasted drafts, we're finally back in the conversation of competitive teams in the conference. But look, we can't fool ourselves. We have several winnable games ahead this fall, but we also need to stop making things harder than they need to be. The last 2 games were victories much tighter than they should have been. We won, yes, but we beat weak teams we should have dominated from the start. Instead, we dug huge holes in the score and had to perform miracles to come back. This isn't sustainable, people. You can't depend on comebacks every week. Eventually, the comeback doesn't come. Eventually, the clock runs out. Eventually, luck turns. We need to stop this tendency of starting poorly and only waking up when we're already losing. And now comes the next test. Week 8, we face the Cowboys. Dallas is at 3 wins, 3 losses, and a tie. It's not a dominant team, but it's also not a team you can underestimate. There's talent there. There are players who can destroy your game if you slip up. But look at this stat I'm going to give you, and pay close attention because this is where things get interesting. The Cowboys are allowing 141 rushing yards per game. Let me repeat for you who were distracted. 141 yards per game. And there's more. They're allowing an impressive 401 total yards per game, which leads the entire league in that negative category. In other words, Dallas's defense is bleeding yards. There's no tomorrow. They can't stop anyone, neither through the air nor on the ground. It's a defense that's desperate, that's being exposed week after week, that's making their fans pull their hair out. So tell me, Broncos Country, what do you think we should do against a defense that can't stop anyone on the ground? What should our game plan be against a team that's allowing almost 150 rushing yards per game? The answer is obvious, isn't it? We need to shove the ball down their throats. We need to run and run some more. We need to make Dobbins have the best game of his season. We need to unleash Bo Nix to use his legs whenever there's space. We need to give touches to Harvey and Beatty and let them prove what they can do. We need to use Mims on jet sweeps and let him show that explosive speed. If you're true Broncos Country, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single play. Hit that red button, activate the bell, and let's build the biggest Broncos fan community here. The math is simple, family. If we establish the run early against Dallas, if we force them to put 8-9 guys in the box to try to stop our running backs, guess what's going to happen? We'll have single coverage on the outside. We'll have our receivers facing cornerbacks one-on-one. And then Bo Nix can do what he does best, quick and accurate throws to open receivers. When you have the running game working, the passing game becomes infinitely easier. Windows get bigger, timing routes work better, play actions become lethal. Everything gets easier when the defense has to respect your run. But if we start the game the same way we started against the Giants, if we try to force ineffective lateral passes, if we ignore our ground game on the first possessions, guess what's going to happen? We'll dig another hole in the score. We'll give confidence to a Dallas defense that's desperate for something positive. We'll make them believe they can win. And then we'll have to make another miraculous fourth-quarter comeback. And these comebacks don't always happen. There is one thing the great NFL teams do consistently. They impose their style of play from the first snap. They don't wait to do what works. They don't test the waters. They take the field knowing exactly what they are, knowing exactly what they do well, and they do it without stopping until the clock hits 0. The Ravens run the ball because they know it works for them. The 49ers establish the run because they know it makes Kyle Shanahan almost impossible to stop. The Eagles pound away with their runs because they know it wears down defenses. And us, we have all the pieces to do the same thing. We have a running back in J.K. Dobbins, who's among the league leaders in rushing yards. We have a quarterback in Bo Nix, who, despite being a rookie, has already shown he can use his legs to gain crucial yards. We have depth in the backfield with Harvey and Beatty. We have creativity with Mims. We have an offensive line that, when it establishes the line of scrimmage and starts opening holes, is quite competent. We have everything, absolutely everything. The only thing missing is the decision to use it from the start, the decision to trust what works, the decision to be who we are without fear, without hesitation, without trying to be something we're not. Sean Payton is a brilliant coach, one of the best offensive minds in league history. But even geniuses can overcomplicate things sometimes. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. And the simplest answer here is run the ball. Run until they prove they can stop it. And when they can't stop it, keep running. Look at what happened when we finally did this against the Giants. The offense came alive. Bo Nix got more comfortable. The runs created short third-down situations, which are infinitely easier to convert. We started controlling the clock, keeping our defense rested, and our defense, which, by the way, has been playing at a high level all season, was able to do its job because it wasn't staying on the field for eternal periods while the offense couldn't move the ball. It's a positive cycle, family. When the offense establishes the run, everything improves. The whole team plays better. The defense plays better because it rests more. Special teams have more opportunities to impact because there are more changes of possession. The crowd gets more excited. Momentum turns in our favor. Everything works better when you have a dominant running game. And here's another truth. When you're winning the game on the ground, when you're consistently getting 4, 5, 6 yards per rush, you're breaking the spirit of the opposing defense. There's nothing more demoralizing for a defender than being pushed back play after play. There's nothing more tiring than having to deal with physical contact every snap, knowing the running back is going to keep coming, that he's going to keep falling forward, that he's going to keep gaining yards. Eventually, that defense breaks. Eventually, they stop giving their all. Eventually, that 4-yard run becomes an 8-yard run, and that 8-yard run becomes a 33-yard touchdown. Dobbins has already shown he can be that type of runner. He has the vision to find the holes, the patience to let his blockers do their work, and the explosion to break through the second level when the opportunity appears. Against the Giants, we had several examples of this. There were runs where he waited, and suddenly exploded through the hole that opened up. There were runs where he made the first guy miss and turned a loss into a positive gain. There were runs where he simply fell forward and picked up those 2-3 yards that keep drives alive. And Bo Nix also deserves a lot of credit. For a rookie quarterback to be willing to use his legs, to be willing to take contact, to be willing to make those tough runs in crucial moments, that speaks volumes about his maturity and his understanding of the game. Those 2 rushing touchdowns weren't luck. They were the product of correct reads, smart decisions, courage to hold the ball when protection broke down, and find space to run. Nix is growing every week. And part of that growth comes precisely from having a running game around him that takes pressure off. When you're a rookie quarterback and you know you don't need to play a perfect game, that you can lean on the ground game when things get tough, you play with more confidence. You don't force passes. You don't panic on third down. You know that if you check down to the running back, he can gain 5-6 yards and convert. You play smarter, more calculated, more efficiently. And that's exactly what we've been seeing from Nix in recent games. So here's the message for Sean Payton and the entire coaching staff. Trust what works. Don't overcomplicate. Don't try to reinvent the wheel every week. You have a running game that's working at a high level. You have multiple guys who can carry the ball. You have an offensive line that's creating holes. Use it, abuse it. Make it the identity of this team. Look, we know Sean Payton loves to sling the ball. He loves calling creative plays, loves surprising defenses, loves that moment when he calls something completely unexpected, and it works perfectly. And all of that has its place. But the foundation needs to be solid. The foundation needs to be running the ball, establishing the line of scrimmage, imposing your will physically. After you do that, after you prove you can and will run the ball, then you can unleash the creativity. Then you can call that flea flicker, that reverse pass, that trick play that catches everyone by surprise. But first you have to establish the basics. And for you, Broncos Country, I want to know, do you agree? Do you think we need to establish the run earlier in games? Or would you rather see Bo Nix slinging it 40, 50 times a game? Comment below what you think, because I want to know your opinion. You're the voice of the fan base. You're the ones who bleed orange and blue every Sunday. So tell me what you want to see from this team against the Cowboys. We have the perfect opportunity to put all this into practice. We have an opponent whose defense is struggling, that's allowing yards in bunches, that's desperate to find answers. If there's a time for us to come out running from the first snap, if there's a time to establish our offensive identity unequivocally, it's now. It's against Dallas. It's in Week 8. Just imagine, we receive the opening kickoff, and on the first drive, we run the ball 6, 7 times. We get 5 yards here, 7 yards there, 4 yards over there. Suddenly, we're in the red zone without Bo Nix having to make a single pass. Dallas's defense is gasping, trying to adjust, starting to bring more guys into the box. And that's exactly when Bo Nix fakes the handoff, holds the ball, and hits a receiver completely alone in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. That's the type of drive that sets the tone for the entire game. That's the type of drive that tells the opponent, you're going to have a long day because we're going to do whatever we want. That's the type of drive that makes the crowd go crazy, that makes the Broncos defense take the field with extra energy, that makes everyone believe. And it all starts with the decision to run the ball. Now, if we start the wrong way again, if we try to force passes that aren't there, if we ignore our ground game, things could get ugly. Dallas may not have the best defense in the league, but they have playmakers. They have guys who can make you pay for mistakes. And if we start slowly again, if we dig another hole in the score, maybe this time the comeback won't come. Maybe this time we'll run out of time. Maybe this time we'll lose. But I believe we've learned. I believe the game against the Giants was a wake-up call. I believe Sean Payton saw what happened in the fourth quarter, saw how the offense came alive when we embraced the running game, and understood the message. I believe we'll enter against Dallas with a solid game plan, focused on doing what we do best, focused on running the ball and establishing our physical identity. And when we do that, when we finally put it all together, when the offense starts working from the first snap with the dominant ground game we have, you'll see a completely different Broncos team. You'll see a team that controls games, that doesn't need miraculous comebacks, that imposes its will on opponents. You'll see a team that's genuinely scary to face, because, you're going to get beaten up for 4 quarters at the line of scrimmage. So, Denver Broncos family, what would you do if you were the offensive coordinator? How many times would you give the ball to Dobbins in the first quarter? Would you use Bo Nix on designed runs from the start or save that for specific moments? Would you give touches to Harvey and Beatty early to keep them involved? Comment below and tell me your game strategy. Hit the like button if you also believe running the ball is the path for us to dominate the AFC West. Share this video with all your Broncos family friends who need to understand why our ground game is the key to everything. and stay tuned to the channel because next week we'll be here analyzing whether we did what we needed to do against the Cowboys. Thanks, Broncos Country, and see you in the next video.